When they first came to film us, Frank and I were the ones they had made arrangements with, and they were like, "Who is she? What is she doing here?" And I said, "Oh, she works for me." And they were like, "Oh, there's no arrangement with her. We're not filming her." That was just the beginning of a story full of drama and intrigue. The story of Danielle Colby, who was once seen as the heart and soul of American pickers, now caught in the whirlwind of an unprecedented scandal. Now, Danielle is no longer just another insider. She stands in court as the defendant in a trial that has rocked the entire United States, surrounding the mysterious death of Frank Fritz. But what's even more shocking are the allegations that Danielle orchestrated a ruthless scheme to trap Mike Wolf, leaving the entire reality TV world stunned. Could she really be the one behind it all? Let's uncover the secrets that have never been revealed in this story. Don't forget to leave a comment with the number 1 if you sympathize with Danielle Colby, or 0 if you have a different opinion. And if you're curious about the truth behind it all, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for what happens next. What could drive someone who once inspired countless fans to become the villain of the story? Why did Frank Fritz, her companion for over a decade, become the target of someone he once called family? And what led Mike Wolf, after everything that had happened, to step forward and point directly at Danielle as the true killer? Watch the full video to uncover the whole truth. And join us in bidding a haunting farewell to Frank Fritz, a legend who left this world in heartbreaking silence. A person at the trial, Danielle Colby went from witness to murder suspect. Initially, Colby appeared in court as a reluctant witness for the prosecution. She tried to remain neutral, avoiding involvement in the heated disputes between the two men who were once the dynamic duo on television. However, as the investigation widened and shocking new evidence surfaced, her name unexpectedly appeared on the list of those involved, prompting the FBI to launch an investigation. In December 2024, the courtroom in Davenport, Iowa, was packed as the trial of Mike Wolf began. The star of the show, American Pickers, was accused of causing the death of his longtime companion, Frank Fritz, who passed away on October 1, 2024. Initially, Frank's death was believed to be from a stroke, but suspicions about poisoning began to surface. The case quickly became a media sensation, especially when Danielle Colby, a close friend of both Mike and Frank, was called to testify as a key witness. Her testimony, along with the strong arguments from lawyers and prosecutors, turned the trial into a media spectacle, revealing dark secrets about the trio's relationship. The investigation began after the FBI searched Mike Wolf's house in October 2024, where they found a diary belonging to Frank, hinting that Mike might have had a motive to kill him, along with a vial of nerve toxin in a safe. Sarah Hargrove, the lead prosecutor with over 20 years of experience in criminal cases, argued that Mike poisoned Frank to prevent a financial lawsuit and protect the American Picker brand. In her opening statement, Hargrove stated, "Mike Wolf is not just a television star, he is someone willing to do anything to maintain power. We will prove that he deliberately poisoned Frank Fritz, a friend he once called a brother, to hide his greed." Although Frank's death was initially reported as a stroke, new evidence like nerve toxin in Frank's blood, encrypted messages between Mike and Danielle Colby, and a $175,000 wire transfer have raised suspicions of a murder plot. Danielle, a close colleague of both Mike and Frank, became a key witness. However, a surprising moment in her testimony caused the FBI to shift their focus and place her at the center of the investigation. Sarah Hargrove, the lead prosecutor with over 25 years of experience, opened the trial with sharp arguments. She presented text messages recovered by the FBI from a backup server, which Danielle had written just hours before Frank was found unconscious. He was currently alone. No one was scheduled to check on him until the next day. "The window was closed," Mike replied. "The topic has been deleted." Hargrove stated, "These messages clearly show a plan to eliminate Frank Fritz. Mike Wolf, with the help of Danielle Colby, poisoned his friend to protect the American Pickers empire." She also highlighted a $175,000 transfer from one of Mike's shell companies to Danielle's account, calling it a silence fee. Mike's defense team, led by Jonathan Kessler, a prominent lawyer from Chicago, argued strongly that the evidence was insufficient and unconvincing. Kessler argued that the text messages had been taken out of context and could not prove any intent to murder. He stated that the $175,000 was merely a legitimate business transaction related to the American Pickers show's foreign accounts. In his opening statement, Kessler said, "Mike Wolf is the victim of a fabricated story designed to tarnish his reputation. Danielle Colby is being coerced into testifying against a longtime friend, and we will prove Mike's innocence." Throughout the trial, when the prosecutor presented evidence of a vial of nerve toxin found in Mike Wolf's garage, a highly potent substance banned for civilian use, the atmosphere in the courtroom became almost frozen. However, Mike's defense lawyer immediately responded confidently. "Your Honor, my client is a professional antiques collector." According to the defense experts, this vial of poison was part of a World War II medical equipment collection. It showed no signs of recent use, there was no DNA evidence of Frank Fritz on the cap, and most importantly, there was no proof that it had been opened in at least 10 years. To link it to him is baseless speculation, if not outright bias. He then presented tax records and photos from 2016, where Mike proudly showed off his historical pharmaceutical collection in an episode that was cut from the show. "Mike is a history enthusiast, not a poisoner," he asserted, as the jury remained uncertain. Danielle Colby took the witness stand on the fourth day, her eyes anxious and her voice trembling. Under the direction of Prosecutor Hargrove, she recounted the change in Mike's behavior after Frank left the show in 2021. Mike became obsessed with becoming the sole face of American Pickers. She shared the tears streaming down her face. "When I suggested making peace with Frank, he got angry and said, 'If Frank doesn't stop demanding, I'll do something to silence him.' I didn't think he was serious, but after Frank's death, I began to fear." Danielle also admitted to seeing Mike bring a vial of strange liquid into the antique archaeology office, but she claimed she didn't know it was poison. During cross-examination, Kessler criticized Danielle's reliability. He pointed out that she had exchanged over 200 messages with Mike in the week following Frank's death, many of which discussed medications and Frank's schedule. "Mrs. Colby, why didn't you report the vial of liquid to the police immediately if you suspected Mike?" Kessler questioned. He also mentioned the $175,000 and Danielle's subsequent purchase of property in Puerto Rico, implying that she took that money to stay silent. Danielle responded, "I didn't know Mike's plan. I just reported what I saw because I owe Frank the truth. That money was for business purposes. not to buy my silence. An unexpected moment occurred when Prosecutor Harrove asked Danielle about checking Frank's medication the day before he died. Danielle, somewhat embarrassed, responded, "I just glanced through to make sure Frank was taking the correct dose because he often forgot. I knew exactly what medication he was on and the dosage." This response caused a stir in the courtroom as it showed that Danielle knew details about Frank's medication, information that matched the poison found in his medicine. Harrove immediately pressed her, "How did you know the exact dosage if you had no intention of intervening? You gave this information to Mike, didn't you?" Danielle stammered, only saying, "I just wanted to help Frank." This inadvertent testimony led the FBI to open a separate investigation into her role, suspecting she could be the mastermind. The situation didn't end there. As soon as Danielle finished her testimony and Mike Wolfe was called to the stand, he continued to deny all charges and unexpectedly criticized Danielle. In an angry tone, he stated, "I didn't kill Frank. Danielle is the one obsessed with controlling the American pickers. She always said Frank was a burden and that the show would be better without him." Those messages. She forced me to delete them to cover up the fact that she was spying on Frank. Mike also insisted that the vial of liquid in the office was brought in by Danielle and that the $175,000 was the amount she demanded to stay silent about the show's shady financial dealings. Mike's testimony, although controversial, led the jury and the public to question Danielle's true motives. Less than 10 minutes later, Judge Linda Mangrove declared a pause in the proceedings. Witness Danielle Colby was now officially the second subject of investigation in this murder case. After what was dubbed the trial of the century, Danielle became the target, and the FBI expanded their investigation by searching for evidence at her estate. Immediately after the dramatic trial in November 2024, where Mike Wolfe was indicted for allegedly killing Frank Fritz, the FBI shifted their focus to Danielle Colby, a close colleague of both men from American Pickers. Danielle's surprising testimony in court, revealing detailed knowledge of the medication Frank had been using, along with Mike's accusation that she was the killer, prompted the investigators to decide to search her home in Davenport, Iowa. Under the leadership of Agent Emily Rivera, a specialist in financial crimes and murder, the FBI quickly obtained a search warrant just 48 hours after the trial. The search took place early in the morning, with FBI agents and local police surrounding Danielle's home. The investigative team focused on her office, where business records related to American Pickers were kept, along with her personal projects, including a vintage clothing store and a burlesque dance troupe. Hidden behind a bookshelf in a safe, the FBI found an encrypted hard drive containing a copy of security footage from cameras near Frank's home on the night he died, October 1st, 2024. Upon analysis, experts confirmed that Danielle had obtained a copy from the security company before handing it over to the police, a clear attempt to cover up evidence. Agent Rivera commented, "This is not the behavior of an innocent witness." After being decrypted and analyzed, the footage provided irrefutable evidence of Danielle's involvement. A video from a camera across from Frank's house shows Danielle driving to his home around 10:30 p.m. on October 1st, 2024, just hours before he was found unconscious. She is recorded entering the house through the back door, carrying a small bag, and leaving shortly after. About 15 minutes later, image enhancement software confirms that the bag contained a glass vial identical to the one later found at Mike's house, containing nerve toxin. More importantly, the footage shows Danielle returning to the nearby security company at 8:00 a.m., requesting that the staff provide a copy of the footage for security review before handing it over to the police. This action explains why the original footage disappeared during the preliminary investigation. A crucial piece of evidence was found in a small wooden box in Danielle's bedroom, a glass vial identical to the one containing the nerve toxin found at Mike's house. Forensic analysis confirmed that the vial contained Danielle's fingerprints and traces of the same toxin that had been mixed into Frank's medication. Additionally, inside the box was a piece of paper detailing the dosage and method for mixing the toxin into Frank's medication, written in Danielle's handwriting. This is in stark contrast to her testimony in court, where she claimed to have only glanced at Frank's prescription to help him. Prosecutor Sarah Hargrove, who is leading Mike's case, immediately called for a separate investigation into Danielle, stating that Colby was not just an accomplice. She was likely the mastermind. The FBI also uncovered further evidence indicating that Danielle had directed the placement of the vial at Mike's house to frame him. A former employee of Antique Archaeology, who requested to remain anonymous, told the FBI that Danielle once asked him to deliver a gift to Mike's house in late September 2024, just days before Frank's death. The employee confirmed that the gift was a small box matching the description of a pill container. Furthermore, through the analysis of encrypted messages, the FBI discovered that Danielle had sent Mike another message after Frank's death, which read, "The bottle has been put away. Don't open it." In his latest testimony, Mike stated, "I didn't know what was in that bottle. Danielle brought it over herself and told me to lock it in the safe." "She set me up from the start." Initially, Mike's testimony was dismissed as a desperate attempt to evade responsibility, but the FBI is now seriously considering his claims. He continues to vehemently deny any involvement in Frank's death, emphasizing that Danielle deceived both him and the show. In a lengthy interrogation, he revealed that Danielle always said Frank was a burden, that he was slowing the show down. She knew the medication Frank was taking had the house keys and controlled the foreign financial accounts. She took advantage of me. Mike continued to testify that the $175,000 was requested by Danielle to resolve some financial issues, and he had no knowledge that the money was related to Frank's death. The financial evidence has deepened the suspicions surrounding Danielle's role. The FBI discovered that she controlled several foreign bank accounts that had received a total of 3 transactions totaling $2 million from suspicious dealings involving American pickers, including $450,000 withdrawn just days before Frank's death. A forensic audit report also revealed that Danielle had transferred part of that money into a personal account in Puerto Rico, where she quickly purchased a luxury property right after the incident. Prosecutor Sarah Hargrove stated that Danielle Colby not only set up Mike Wolfe, but also orchestrated a sophisticated plan to eliminate Frank Fritz, take control of the show's finances, and pin the blame on someone else. She had used a pro-feminist image as a cover to hide her crimes. The evidence found at Danielle's home not only strengthened the case against her, but also opened up the possibility of re-evaluating Mike Wolfe's role, although he still faces financial-related charges. At this point, the focus of the case has completely shifted to Danielle, who has emerged as the prime suspect, and her upcoming trial promises to be dramatic. Thirdly, the plot to isolate Frank Fritz. The relationship between Frank Fritz, Danielle Colby, and Mike Wolfe, once the heart of American Pickers, is now at the center of a chilling mystery. The popular reality TV show on the History Channel focuses on antique hunting. The trio, Frank and Mike as the Pickers, traveling across the U.S., and Danielle as the sharp manager at Antique Archaeology, portrayed a friendly image as a family. However, behind the scenes, a darker story began to unfold in 2018 when Frank started being isolated from the show. Initially, Frank, Mike, and Danielle formed a harmonious team. Frank Fritz and Mike Wolfe, like brothers, shared a passion for antiques and co-founded American Pickers in 2010. Danielle, coordinating from the office, brought intelligence and a strong personality that helped the show stand out. However, starting in 2018, when Frank began facing health issues, including chronic back pain and Crohn's disease, he became slower during trips. According to an anonymous former production assistant, Danielle started referring to Frank as a burden in private conversations with Mike, suggesting the show would be more effective with Mike as the sole focus, slowly but deliberately isolating Frank. Danielle, with increasing influence within the production team, persuaded the producers to reduce Frank's screen time, citing his health issues as being insufficient for long trips. She also encouraged Mike to avoid personal contact with Frank outside of work, claiming it was to maintain the professional image of the show. An encrypted message later discovered by the FBI sent by Danielle to Mike in 2020 read, "Frank needs to stay in Iowa. He needs to shine on his own. I'll handle the rest." Mike, though reluctant, gradually agreed, feeling pressured by Danielle and the producers to maintain the success of American Pickers. He later testified in court, "I didn't want to alienate Frank, but Danielle made me believe it was the only way to save the show." By 2021, Danielle accelerated her plan to remove Frank. She arranged secret meetings with Mike and the producers, stressing that Frank no longer fit the new direction of the show, which focused on faster trips and more dynamic content. According to Frank's journal, which was collected by the FBI after his death on October 1st, 2024, he wrote, "DNM whispers. Every time I walk in, I feel like an outsider in my own show." Frank was forced to leave American Pickers in July 2021, officially for health reasons, but he believed that Danielle had manipulated Mike to push him out. In a 2025 interrogation, Mike broke down in tears and said, "Losing Frank is the hardest thing in my life. I let Danielle Colby take control because I thought she was right, but I was wrong." Mike's grief was compounded when Danielle began pressuring him to transfer the American Picker brand and rights to her. Starting in 2022, Danielle, as the CFO at Antique Archaeology, controlled foreign accounts that received $32 million from suspicious transactions related to the show. She threatened to expose these transactions, which could harm Mike's reputation if he did not agree to the transfer. An encrypted message from Danielle to Mike in 2023, retrieved by the FBI, stated, "Sign the contract or everyone will know the truth about the money. You have no other choice." Cornered, Mike signed the transfer agreement in August 2023, just days before Danielle received a $175,000 transfer from one of his shell companies, which the FBI suspects was a hush money payment. Danielle's manipulation didn't stop there. She continued consolidating her power by controlling the show's content, from staging antique discoveries to ensuring she had more screen time. While Mike sank into grief over the loss of Frank and the feeling of betrayal, Danielle built her image as an independent star, using the American Picker brand to promote her clothing store. What do you think of Danielle's actions? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on this shocking story. A former crew member revealed to the FBI that Danielle once told Mike during an argument in 2023, "Frank is done, and you'll be next if you don't do what I say." This threat made Mike live in fear, unwilling to confront her directly. The same former crew member revealed to the FBI that Danielle once told Mike during a 2023 argument, "Frank is done, and you'll be next if you don't do what I say." Another trial was convened, and this time the person held responsible for Frank Fritz's death was not Mike Wolf, but Danielle Colby. In February 2025, the courtroom in Davenport, Iowa, once again drew public attention as Danielle Colby stood trial for the murder of Frank Fritz, who died on October 1, 2024. Following the previous trial focused on Mike Wolf, a series of new pieces of evidence pointed directly to Danielle as the mastermind behind the incident. The 3-week trial exposed her manipulative tactics, isolating Frank and setting Mike up, culminating in the jury's crucial verdict. Sarah Hargrove continued as the lead prosecutor. She began the trial with a compelling argument portraying Danielle as a cold, calculating individual who staged Frank's murder to solidify her position at American Pickers. Hargrove presented surveillance footage from near Frank's residence, perfectly matching the timeline. Danielle was accused of visiting Frank's home at 10 p.m., injecting a nerve toxin, and then leaving. Later, she retrieved the footage and disposed of the glass vial by delivering it to Mike's house. On the defendant's side, veteran attorney Margaret Wilson, with over 2 decades of experience, led Danielle's defense team. Wilson argued that the evidence had been manipulated to frame her client. She contended that Danielle had no motive for the crime and that the FBI had coerced her into covering up flaws in the investigation related to Mike Wilson, suggesting that the vial found at Danielle's house could have been planted by someone else, and the footage was insufficient to confirm the poisoning. In her opening statement, the defense attorney declared, "Danielle Colby is the victim of a smear campaign. She cherished Frank and tried to help him return to the show. We will prove her innocence." However, this argument quickly collapsed in the face of forensic evidence. Danielle testified on the 5th day of the trial, her voice trembling and her attitude defensive. She denied all accusations, claiming that her visit to Frank's house was only to check on his health and that the vial of medicine in her bag was just a decorative gift for Mike. When asked about the footage retrieved from the security company, Danielle hesitated in her response, saying, "I just wanted to ensure the area was safe, with no intention of hiding anything." However, when Prosecutor Hargrove questioned her about a handwritten note detailing the dosage of the nerve toxin found at her house, Danielle fell silent, merely stating, "I don't know where it came from." This unconvincing testimony, along with an encrypted message sent to Mike saying, "The vial has been placed, don't open it," caused the jury to doubt her honesty. Mike Wolf was also called to testify, delivering an emotional account. He recounted how Danielle had manipulated him since 2018 to isolate Frank, urging him to limit contact with his close friend, ultimately pushing Frank out of American Pickers in 2021. Mike tearfully stated that Danielle claimed Frank was a burden and that the show only needed him. "I followed her because I feared losing everything, but in the end, I lost Frank, my brother." Mike also confirmed that Danielle had threatened to expose suspicious financial transactions to force him to transfer the American Picker brand to her in 2023. He asserted that the vial found at his house was brought there by Danielle, and he had no knowledge of the toxic substance inside. Mike's testimony further reinforced the idea that Danielle acted in her own self-interest. Lisa Fritz, Frank's sister, gave an emotional testimony on behalf of the family. She cried. "Frank trusted Danielle like family, but she betrayed him. He felt isolated, abandoned, and now we understand why." Lisa recalled that Frank had confided in her about Danielle and Mike whispering behind his back, causing him to lose trust in both. Her testimony, along with entries from Frank's journal, highlighted the deliberate isolation, portraying Danielle as cold and calculating in the eyes of the jury. Other witnesses further clarified Danielle's behavior. Jason Miller, a former cameraman on the show, testified that he saw Danielle tearing pages from Frank's notebook on set in 2020. She explained at the time that it was to protect Frank. Miller also recalled an argument in 2021 when Danielle told Mike that Frank was the biggest issue with the show. Forensic evidence was considered a decisive factor in the entire case. The FBI presented an analysis of the vial of medicine found at Danielle's house, which contained her fingerprints and traces of a nerve toxin that matched the substance found in Frank's blood. The handwritten note was confirmed to be written by Danielle, detailing the method of mixing the poison into Frank's medication, which completely contradicted her testimony. Furthermore, financial documents revealed that Danielle controlled several foreign accounts that received a total of $32 million from American Pickers, including a $450,000 withdrawal made just before Frank's death, further clarifying her financial motive. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury rendered their verdict on February 28, 2025. Danielle Colby was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and financial fraud. A jury member, a retired teacher, stated, "From the footage, the vial, to the messages, everything shows that Danielle meticulously planned and carried out her actions with cold intent. She is not truthful, and we cannot ignore the pain she caused." The courtroom fell silent as Danielle, pale-faced, was escorted out, while the Fritz family embraced each other, crying. The public, especially fans of American Pickers, expressed their outrage and disappointment over the verdict on Platform X, Sir Justice for Frank and not her Danielle. Guilty quickly became a global trending topic within 48 hours after the trial ended, with over 3 million posts shared. Fans labeled Danielle a traitor and expressed their sadness upon learning that she had isolated Frank since 2018, manipulated Mike, and coldly planned the murder. A user, PickersFan92, wrote, "I grew up with Frank and Mike. Danielle used to be my idol, but she ruined everything. Frank forever." However, a small group of fans defended Danielle, believing that she had been framed, but the hashtag #DashemFreeDanielle quickly faded away. Mike's reaction after the trial went beyond words. He immediately donated $500,000 from his personal account to the Crohn's Disease Foundation, a condition Frank had battled throughout his life. and committed to opening a small museum in Iowa to display the antiques that he and Frank had collected. In his Instagram post on April 5, 2025, Mike shared, "I can't change what has happened, but I can keep Frank's legacy alive. He was the true soul of American pickers, not me." The post garnered over 12 million likes and thousands of comments, mostly expressing support and sorrow over the broken friendship. Mike refused to comment further on Danielle, saying only, "Justice has been served. I just want Frank to rest in peace." Most viewers agreed that American Pickers had officially ended with the verdict. A user commented, "This is no longer about antique hunting. It's a tragedy. Mike can't go on alone." Under public pressure, History Channel officially canceled the show in early May 2025, calling the situation an irreplaceable loss. Exactly 1 year after Frank Fritz's controversial death, public attention once again focused on a remote cemetery on the outskirts of Iowa. The once peaceful gravel road was now congested with a long line of trucks carrying film equipment, journalists, antique hunters, and curious onlookers. Barriers were hastily set up around the National Treasure Hunter's granite tomb, while the sound of cameras clicking echoed around what was supposed to be a simple grave, which quickly turned into an unprecedented media frenzy. The official reason for the exhumation was that the land where Frank rested had been purchased by developers to plan an expansion of a local history museum. Initially reluctant, Frank's family eventually agreed to move the grave to a larger, more private memorial 20 meters away, with one condition: no cameras, no noise. However, that promise was quickly broken. When the news leaked to the local press, the wave of attention spread far beyond expectations. Media outlets, social media, and fan groups continuously shared the story. Faced with public pressure, local authorities were forced to allow a limited film crew to record the event. In return, all revenue from the broadcast rights would be donated to the Crohn's Disease Foundation, a condition Frank had battled for much of his adult life. The Fritz family, although still hesitant, agreed. They believed Frank, a man who lived simply and always thought of others, would not oppose continuing to help the community even after his death. Frank never liked to draw attention, his sister Lisa shared with the press, but he was always willing to help. This is how he continues to do it. At the center of the scene appears a special character, Dr. LLNR Chambers, a renowned conservation archaeologist who has overseen many historical excavation projects across the United States with expertise in handling sensitive and valuable artifacts. Dr. Chambers was chosen to oversee the entire exhumation process of Frank's grave. "Our priority is respect," she told a select group of reporters. "We are conducting this work according to specialized procedures, just like any other historical artifact relocation, and most importantly, with absolute respect for the family's wishes." At exactly 8:30 a.m., the official work began. A small crane slowly lifted the heavy granite slab off Frank's grave. No one spoke. Everyone held their breath as what appeared beneath was not a regular coffin, but a specially designed preservation chamber. Mike Wolfe, Frank's longtime friend and companion, stood nearby, his eyes red and softly saying, "This is exactly what Frank wanted." Mike recalled that Frank had joked that if he passed away, he wanted to be buried with his favorite photos, and a few of his most important possessions. At the time, we thought he was just joking, Mike sighed. But after the stroke in 2022, he started preparing seriously and made it a reality. As the preservation team opened the sealed compartment, a collective gasp echoed in the silent space. In the dim morning light, the items inside sparkled, forming one of the most remarkable personal Americana collections ever recorded. Even close friends had never seen these items. They were kept in separate compartments around the coffin. Each compartment had been carefully chosen by Frank in his final years, as if he were building his own American museum, a personal legacy beyond words. Dr. Chambers, overseeing the entire process, could hardly believe her eyes. With over 2 decades of conservation work, she told the media, "I have never seen anything like this. This is not just a collection. This is a profound slice of history presented through the eyes of a very special individual." Her gaze landed on an item near the head of the coffin, an original 1934 Indian motorcycle. The motorcycle still retained its original paint and paperwork related to its first owner, a mailman from the Midwest who had once traveled throughout the rural areas. Frank had discovered it in a dilapidated barn in Iowa in 2019, but he never made the find public. Public experts at the scene appraised the motorcycle at over $300,000. However, as Mike Wolfe stated, its true value cannot be measured in money. Not far from it was an old wooden box containing a stack of handwritten letters, which astonished historians. The sender, Thomas Edison; the recipient, a young female inventor forgotten by history. The contents revealed a secret collaboration that may have contributed to some of Edison's most notable inventions. Later, experts confirmed the letters as authentic, a discovery that could rewrite a portion of U.S. scientific history. However, amidst the treasure, there was a quiet corner that left all witnesses in tears. A collection of handmade toy cars, each bearing the name of a child who had been treated by the staff at Iowa Children's Hospital, revealed that Frank had quietly volunteered there for many years. He taught children how to assemble miniature versions of classic cars as part of psychological therapy. After each session, he kept one car as a personal reminder of friendship, hope, and a connection that transcended all boundaries. But the most poignant item lay at the end of the coffin, a small leather-bound journal embossed with the words, "True Discoveries." Inside was not a list of items that had appeared on the show, but the everyday stories behind them. From families, artisans, farmers, to mechanics, the ordinary Americans Frank met on his journey, the journal revealed a truth that perhaps the audience never realized. Frank was not just an antique collector, he was an unofficial historian, quietly recording the lives of Americans through every person he met. After carefully considering all aspects, the Fritz family agreed to the proposal of organizing an exhibition, with one condition. The entire collection must be permanently housed at a dedicated museum in Fritz's hometown. Frank had spent his entire life bringing forgotten treasures back to the public, Lisa Fritz shared. Now, those very objects would continue telling the stories that he cherished above all else. For 3 consecutive days, conservation experts meticulously cataloged and removed each artifact from the storage room, carefully recording their original positions along with any handwritten notes left by Fritz. The entire process was live-streamed on multiple digital platforms, with historians providing background information and analysis every time a new item was revealed. The viewership broke every record, not only due to the value of the artifacts, but also because the audience was witnessing a side of Frank Fritz that had never been seen before. In addition to being a passionate collector, Fritz, through his own collection, proved himself to be a talented storyteller, an unofficial historian of everyday American life. The transfer of his remains, after the full collection had been retrieved, took place in a quiet, solemn atmosphere. Fritz's coffin was taken to its new resting place in a procession of vintage cars driven by his close friends and longtime colleagues. The memorial was designed by Mike Wolfe in collaboration with the Fritz family and carries the unmistakable style of classic American roadside architecture. It was a simple yet powerful tribute to the man who wandered countless rural roads in pursuit of lost history. In the weeks that followed, small museums and historical societies across the United States reported a surge in visitors, a movement that the media dubbed the Fritz effect. People began to care more about the heritage of their communities, the stories, artifacts, and individuals once overlooked or forgotten. Frank's small leather-bound journal, preserved and digitized, became the foundation for a new project to capture the memories of everyday Americans. At the same time, the Fritz Scholarship was established to support researchers working to preserve history and memory, particularly in rural areas often neglected. 1 year after Frank Fritz's passing, the man who quietly guarded the fragments of Americana achieved something no one expected. He had made the most profound impact of his entire life. That final collection didn't just contain old objects. It reshaped the way we think about history and the hidden value within seemingly ordinary things. However, the antique community still struggled to accept his loss. The pain was deepened when initial reports indicated the involvement of the FBI in Frank's death. A shocking revelation. A tragedy that seemed to have closed had opened up like an unhealable crack. A wave of questions began to arise, but no answers were forthcoming. His grieving family suddenly found themselves caught in a new storm, a storm full of chaos and doubt. Frank Fritz, the antique hunter with passionate eyes and a heart anchored in history, had once been the soul of American pickers on the History Channel. Along with Mike Wolfe, he traveled across the backroads of America, scouring abandoned barns and dusty corners to bring forgotten treasures back into the light. It wasn't just a television show. It was a journey of preserving the memories of a nation beloved by the audience. Frank, not only for his vast knowledge of classic toys, vintage motorcycles, and rusty oil cans, but also for his humble nature, authenticity, and the childlike excitement he exuded every time he made a rare discovery. With millions of viewers each week, Frank was more than just a host. He embodied a bygone America, familiar, nostalgic, and deeply human. Frank Fritz spent his entire life traveling, chasing lost memories, and harnessing the storytelling power of old things. But that was his final story, one marked by tragedy and unanswered questions now shrouded in a fog of deception, betrayal, and fractured relationships once thought unbreakable. Danielle Colby, who had stood by him on screen for over a decade, now faces what seems to be a life sentence. However, the truth remains undiscovered, and the investigation is still ongoing. What do you think really happened with Frank Fritz? Was it a betrayal, or is there something deeper going on? Don't forget to leave a comment with the number 1 if you sympathize with Frank Fritz, or 0 if you have a different opinion. And if you want to keep following unsolved mysteries and shocking revelations that are slowly coming to light, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell because the story of Frank Fritz is far from over, and some secrets are still lurking in the shadows. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. See you in the next one.